CJ Carr, Leonard Moore, and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish enter the 2026 college football season as national title contenders. Once again, this team is absolutely loaded. They've got the best cornerback prospect in over a decade. There's nobody else in the defensive backfield that I'd rather have in the last decade of this sport than this man, Leonard Moore. He can line up and shut down just about anybody that lines up opposite of him. And their quarterback, CJ Carr, well, he is the Heisman front runner. Their coach, Marcus Freeman, is arguably the best motivator of men, of individuals in the sport of college football that it has to offer. They brought in two transfer portal Ohio State Buckeye wide receivers with the departure of Brian Hartline. How fortunate for the Fighting Irish faithful. Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter. Two guys that were supposed to be next up for Buckeyes fans, and instead, they can help Notre Dame if they face the Buckeyes again in a national title game, in a rematch from that game 2 years ago. Look, Notre Dame's success this next season ultimately will be found in the playoff. This team has an over-under of 11.5 wins. Their only games that they really stand to potentially lose are BYU, of course, Provo. That's a tough game on the road against Bear Bachmeier, Kalani Sitake and company, and then Miami at home in South Bend. Does help a little bit that game is going to be in South Bend, and it's not going to be in humid Miami like the opener was a year ago. That's the primary reason why you lost that game, but it is an advantage for the Miami Hurricanes, who obviously have that home field advantage and practice in those conditions. Let's go into this schedule and walk through it. Let's talk about storylines going into this season, a bit of roster movement and what the activity is, and have ourselves some fun here. Week 1 against Wisconsin. This is a fun matchup against Luke Fickell's squad that is trying to find the identity of what the Badgers were, right? They've gone away from that. They've been a bit more innovative under him, and it has not worked out. Notre Dame is looking to get their feet under them in this first game. Like, come out, CJ Carr operating this offense as an individual that looks like he's worthy to potentially be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Could be after this season. And why is that on the table? Man, this kid's got a nice release. That football comes out on time, on target, with velocity, and he is simply a coach on the field, right? This is a guy that's not going to win any drag races. He's not going to win any races with his legs, but what he can do is he can get the football out and put it in the right spot to make his wide receivers better, and that's why I'm very excited about this core. It's just the best wide receiving core I've seen for Notre Dame really ever, I would say. Jordan Faison is back. This is a guy that I believe could be your wide receiver too. It depends on how everything shakes out with fall camp. But 640 yards and 4 touchdowns a year ago, not exactly a bad number 2 option to potentially have. Jaden Greathouse is back. Remember, I think he scored 2 touchdowns against the Buckeyes in the national title game. He had 600 yards 2 years ago and then could not stay on the field, had injuries last year. So you've got 4 true legitimate weapons. There's also Micah Gilbert and Cam Williams. So the backfield, you won't be the same. All right, coming off of a win against Wisconsin, I've got a win against Rice. Right, Aeneas Williams is now the featured back after Jeremiah Love was taken 3rd overall by the Arizona Cardinals. Jadarian Price goes 32nd overall to the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. You feel why Notre Dame fans felt so slighted, because they had that amount of talent on their team, and the committee said, no, that loss early in the season, you guys are not worthy. 2 losses. You lost your first 2 games. Lost to A&M. Obviously, Miami was pretty good. They went to the national title game. But this is a Notre Dame team that could have done some true damage if they had made it to the dance, if you will. After a win against Rice, it's Michigan State. It's a favorable schedule for the first 6 games, if you will. Michigan State, they will handedly beat. It's an amazing opportunity for CJ Carr to simply get on his horse and lead the pack, right? In these first 3 games, throw for over 1,000 yards. just absolutely decimate the competition, come out gunning. And that's what I want to see. I want to see an aggressive version. I don't want to see a team that walks out there and says, look, our defense is so good. Let's not turn the football over and we're going to win all these games. No, I want to see CJ Carr have some growing pains, make some mistakes, make a couple of bad throws, throw a pick in the red zone so that you can learn from it, so that when you do get to the premiere, the matchup games that are coming, they will be coming, specifically against Miami and then in the playoff. They will be on their way. So have that experience behind you. I think that they're going to beat Purdue in the matchup after Michigan State with 2 wins against those Big Ten teams, actually a third after beating Wisconsin. And the following week, you've got North Carolina on the road at Bill Belichick's squad. You look at the entirety of that roster compared to Notre Dame's. I mean, it's incredible what Marcus Freeman has built here, especially for an instrument, right? An organization, a program that has these high academic standards. And you're able to field this kind of roster. You're able to get DJ McKinney to transfer over from Colorado. This kid is incredible. You're able to maintain or retain Christian Gray, Don Schuler, Boakar Traore is back. So this Notre Dame defense, if they are not a top 5 unit in the country, I would be very disappointed. Their fans would be disappointed more than anyone. The players and their head coach Freeman would be incredibly disappointed. The performance against A&M, without a doubt, was shocking, and it was surprising, specifically the damage that was done in the secondary. But I don't think there's anything like that coming, as a matter of who that they play up against really throughout the regular season. So after starting 4-0, beating North Carolina would put them to 5-0 at Stanford in the middle of the day. And I see no reason why they do not win each of their first 6 games by 20 points at least. And I'm serious about that margin. 3-score wins in each of their first 6 games. That is what I want to see from Notre Dame. And if they don't, I'll have questions about the intensity level and this team. If they're able to come out and do that, yes, they'll look like the best team in the country. Maybe not playing against great competition. You know, at Texas and Ohio State play each other. But if you decimate the competition like you're supposed to, like Notre Dame did the back half of the season, you're looking like, okay, well, this team had won 10 games to end the season. They won the first 6. They're putting together a streak right now. The following week is BYU, right? It's Bear Bachmeier and company. And this is where you start to test your offensive line. The first time we've really talked about this unit specifically. All of that returning talent, right? From Anthony Knapp to Ashton Craig to Lambert on the right side, Jagasaw on right guard. That's what builds the continuity that's built between returning players, specifically at offensive line, is vital. You look at what Michigan had with their guys returning, the Buckeyes with their talent coming back throughout that team, and Indiana last year on the left side with Carter Smith, right? Their center that winds up winning the MVP of the Rose Bowl, which was a cool moment. But you saw that materialize for Notre Dame. These teams that are winning national titles are older, they're more experienced, and they're also dipping into the portal for specific needs. And I believe they check that box on the outside of those 2 Buckeye wideouts. Now, maybe only one of them materializes into something special, but you'll probably take that. And if you got to spend $1 million on each of them, what's another $1 million if we guarantee ourselves one of these guys hitting and being either our top wideout or a number 2 or a very good number 3 that can produce over 500 yards, be a consistent weapon in the red zone or a target on 3rd down in big games when we do play in those matchup games. So I'm going through this trying to find a weakness for Notre Dame. All right, well, where does it lie? The answer is there really isn't a weakness. It's simply that before that BYU game, you haven't faced a level of competition. You haven't faced a team that's remotely close that you'd think would be ranked, whereas BYU, they were knocking on the door of the playoff last year. They beat Texas Tech. They would have stamped their ticket to the college football playoff had they won that game. So I think they beat BYU, but it is a little bit tougher from the get-go. You trying to run the football, like this is a little bit tougher than it was the first half of the season. That this is a team with guys up front that are making things difficult. So I see them beating BYU, but not having as prolific an offensive performance, something like 24 to 14. They get the job done, pull away a little bit late. It's not really in threat that they lose the game, but it's obvious that there was a bit of some pushback from the BYU side. The next week against Navy, the next week is the bye, and then you've got Navy. Trap game. This is a trap game. You're going to be staring at Miami the following week after that, right? There's no doubt this is a trap game. The good thing about the trap game level is Navy doesn't present a ton of challenges, right? So you'll be able to walk out there and should be able to win this game in the first half, and then it is the Miami Hurricanes. You're walking on in there with an 8-0 record, far different from last season in the way the start went, right? You are rolling in there as a top 3 team in the country. If you're 8-0, you will be a top 3-4 team in the country. You're not going to drop no matter what the results kind of look like. They're just going to retain that, right? But the College Football Playoff Committee really just cares about what the win-loss is. That's what they've shown so far. Notre Dame's know that very well. Miami, it's in South Bend. The object of your ire, Alabama got in the playoff when Notre Dame was a better team than them last year. Notre Dame was very likely a better team than Oklahoma. That game against Miami was on the road, right? It was early in the season before Notre Dame got rolling on the back part of the stretch of the year, so that was obviously tough. This is as good as it gets, and in my opinion, as even as it gets. This is true matchup, where you've got Malachi Toney. There's an argument for him to be the second best wide receiver behind Jeremiah Smith, and Darian Mensah can be a Heisman candidate this season. There's no doubt, right? They brought over Cooper Barkate with him. Cooper Barkate had over 1,000 yards last year. This kid is incredible. And yet, they're facing a Notre Dame secondary that is the best in the country. I talked to McKinney coming over from Colorado, Christian Gray, Leonard Moore. It's ridiculous that they have that much talent. Schuler back there at safety. He had what? He's had 50 tackles each of the last couple seasons. He can come up and play on the line of scrimmage. The difference to me is if Miami is able to maintain possession and Mark Fletcher Jr. is able to break one. That's simply it. Because last year, you're waiting for Jeremiah Love to break one. If he could, that would have been the chance for Notre Dame to seize control and to win that game last year. Whereas on this side of it, I'm actually putting it on the Canes that Miami is simply going to lose this game. You play it straight for 4 quarters without that massive explosive play, that they're going to lose to Notre Dame. I have about equal as much faith in each of these quarterbacks. I'm not really leaning a certain way. I know CJ Carr's got a little bit more top-end ability, right, where he projects. Mensah's a bit more experienced. Right? Kid just won the ACC for Duke. But Mark Fletcher Jr. is the guy that I circle that if this game were to be won by Miami, they're going to need a huge play from him. Or, of course, like any game of football, you're going to need a turnover over a takeaway, which Miami was able to get, I believe, from Ruben Bain Jr. on a pretty wacky play. And that showed the nation. It was like, holy cow. Ruben Bain Jr., Akeem Mesidor, Ahmad Moten, Justin Scott. This front line for Miami, my goodness. They're replacing those 2 guys with one, and Damon Wilson, the second, coming over from Missouri. So they're not going to be quite as good getting to the quarterback, stopping the run from those 2 spots. How can you after having 2 first-round pick edges? But I think Damon Wilson winds up being a first-round pick at edge. Maybe not quite as dominant as either of them, but still has a really good season. And Ahmad Moten from the interior is another year stronger, bigger, and Justin Scott as well. Probably the best defensive tackle duo in college football next season. Those 2, you got Mohamed Toure behind that, right? Frederic is back. Zechariah Poyser. We're listing a lot of that defense from Miami. But I just look at the other side of Notre Dame and how much talent they have, that I just have to see a big play from Notre Dame. If it simply plays out straight, Notre Dame beats them on a game-winning kick the same way Miami did it to Notre Dame last year. So It was a great comeback effort from Notre Dame getting back into that game last year. I simply see Notre Dame controlling that one from pretty much the get-go. And unless Malachi Tony has an explosive in the punt return game, and that's coupled with a big play from Fletcher, I'm going to take Notre Dame to beat Miami and keep on rolling, beating Boston College the following week, and then it's SMU. You know, I talked about how BYU is one of those losable games, and SMU, many people were surprised they wouldn't list them because them and Louisville are the two teams you would take after Miami to win the ACC. Probably the ACC title games played between two of those three teams. But it's the way that they're built. You know, BYU is built better to beat Notre Dame than this oriented running game and scrambling around style that SMU has in their starting quarterback, Kevin Jennings. That's just not going to fly. That's not going to hold up against the power that Notre Dame has up front. But whereas Bear Bachmeier's more physical style, and yes, he is overly mobile, they have an ability on defense that I like their defense way more, and they're simply more of a physical team, right? With LJ Martin in the backfield, they have the ability to pound it. So I think SMU is a team some people might say that they trip up against. Maybe it's the reason why they don't wind up with a bye. They're thinking about the playoff and they get ahead of themselves and they get tripped up by SMU. But I would see it very much more likely against BYU in those non-Miami games. And the following week, you've got Syracuse on the road to end the season. So I will predict that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish go 12-0 and get a first-round bye in the playoff. And you can get a first-round bye in the playoff if you do not win your conference. It's all simply just based on ranking. If you've got the ranking in the top 4 by the committee, you do not need to be a conference champion. Now, a conference champion in the Power 4 does guarantee you a bid to the college football playoff, but does not mean that you have to be a conference champion in order to get a bye. Just for a perfect example, last year the Buckeyes were not a conference champion, and they themselves got a bye in the playoff a year ago. So that is my prediction for Notre Dame, 12-0. Let me know down below in the comments here what you think the Fighting Irish will be this season, and if you are as high on them as I am. Anything less than a trip to the semifinal, or quite honestly, a trip to the national championship game, is a missed opportunity for Marcus Freeman's team. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Blitz with Blender. My name is Josh Blender. We will be previewing a lot of Notre Dame this football, so if you enjoy college football content, the NFL, we make videos every single day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blender, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blender.
To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.